Hello, McDude here. And in our last episode, Jeb and Kerman, after an 84-kilometer march through the Mooner Desert, had just rendezvoused with Bill Kerman and the Rescue 1 spacecraft. However, after the boys in Mission Control did some calculations, they determined that Rescue 1 barely has the fuel to make it into orbit. It certainly doesn't have the fuel to make it back. So attention is turned to this contraption, which was to be the original Rescue 1. It was abandoned after it had a bad habit of exploding while flying into space. Parts frequently fly off and everything. But nonetheless, we turned to it because, well, it's kind of all we got left. And it has accommodations for 6 personnel, which is more than enough. Yeah, you can see the moon preparing for a solar eclipse there. And you see a UFO flying by. My first UFO in Kerbal Space Program. I don't really know what that is. What the hell is that? Anyway, this thing was the size of an office building when it took off, and after shedding its solid boosters, its liquid boosters, and it's still running on a few more. It's steadily getting smaller. You'll notice that its thrust-to-weight ratio really isn't that great. It's frequently flying sideways. If you compare it to the planet behind it, it's not always flying straight up, but or at the angle that we want it to. But these things happen. It is doing this is actually the best this particular spacecraft has ever performed. It has XS RCS tanks. You see the roundified tanks all over the place. Which I need to muscle it around because it is so large. The reaction wheels don't really work all that well with a spacecraft of this size and this flexible. So the first task is just get this beast into orbit. And Bob, despite all of his screaming, he's doing a pretty good job of tempering the beast. This wobbly thing, and he manages to get it into a nice circular orbit, and from there the boys in Mission Control can start plotting out our route to the Mun. So after conducting their calculations, Mission Control realized it would be about 2 full orbits of the planet Kerbin before we're ready to, before we get our launch window to the Mun. In the meantime, we get to enjoy this very nice eclipse, partial eclipse of the sun. This is the Mun, eclipsing the Kerbal, which is our home star. And our second orbit, we get to witness a sunrise. And we get to watch the Kerbal rise above the planet Kerbin as we close in for our burn, the translunar ejection burn. That'll get us to the Mun. I have to crack the engine once in order to get a calculation because the nav ball wasn't giving me a time frame for how long the estimated burn would be. And then shortly thereafter, we're able to power up the engines to full power to conduct the burn. By the way, if you look slightly to the left of the sun, you'll see the shadow of the moon in the aurora of the sun as it pulls away now that the eclipse is over. So after a long flight to the Moon, Bob Kerman has put the Rescue 2 spacecraft into an equatorial orbit represented by the Aqua line, which is the easiest way to begin a rendezvous. I believe this is roughly a 10,000 meter orbit, if I remember correctly. Back on the surface of the Moon, the Rescue 1 crew can see the Rescue 2 spacecraft a mere 51 kilometers, 52 kilometers, 53 kilometers south of it. Bill and Jebediah are rather happy to see the spacecraft there. They're all smiles. So, since it is Bill's spacecraft, he takes the controls, fires up the engines, using minimal power to conserve fuel, pardon me. He takes off and begins the pursuit of Rescue 2, which has already been highlighted as a target, as a docking target. We're not actually going to dock with the spacecraft, as they don't give you any docking parts in the demo. If you haven't been paying attention in the other episodes, this is all in the KSP Demo. And there are no docking parts in that, which means that when we finally make the rendezvous, we're going to have to do a rather lengthy spacewalk to transfer Bill and Jebediah from Rescue 1 to Rescue 2. Right now, our main concern is getting the Rescue 1 spacecraft in orbit without running out of fuel. You'll notice that all of the maneuver nodes to conduct a rendezvous are included in the KSP demo. There's just no docking port. So you can rendezvous with the spacecraft, you can pull up alongside it, you just can't dock to it. Any crew transfer has to be done via EVA. So we conduct our burn, get us into orbit. Then we begin the task of having Rescue 2 pursue Rescue 1. Actually, we have Rescue 1 pursue Rescue 2 until Rescue 1 runs out of fuel. Then Rescue 2 resumes the pursuit. But right now, this is the two orbits, which are rather different from each other. Bill is once again screaming. And it's a very nice visual. Kerbin off in distance. Now, these are the two orbits of the two different spacecraft. And Rescue 2 And here we see where Rescue 2 has closed the gap, bringing both orbits into alignment. Here the orbits are right on path. Rescue 2 is pulling up alongside Rescue 1. Rescue 1 is a mere 688 meters away. Rescue 2 gooses the engine just to get a little bit closer. I'm relying on reaction wheels to maneuver the spacecraft because I'm out of RCS fuel. We hold slowing down the spacecraft until it's as close as possible. Rescue 1 begins to pull up alongside. And this is all about 4 times faster than normal because this rescue mission took hours upon hours upon hours. Here we go. We slow the spacecraft down, 140 meters away. We goose it in a little bit. And I really couldn't tell you how long this rescue mission took. It was, I know just the crew transfer was 45 minutes. And I think I bring it down to like 2 or 3 for you. Overall, the entire rescue mission was like probably close to like 12 hours. It took a long time. It spread out over, well, I'd like to say spread over, I think I did it all day on a Saturday. Anyway, and there was a lot of recorded video to go through and trying to figure out what you would enjoy and what you wouldn't. Here we goose a little bit closer, slow it down again till we're about 22 meters away. So getting a little closer. We switch to Rescue 1 and Jebediah gets out. Unfortunately, we're on the dark side of the moon, so there's not a lot of light here. And I had never done too many spacewalks before this. Usually we just get out of the spacecraft and look around and get back in. I'd never really done a whole lot. Certainly nothing as elaborate as transferring from one spacecraft to another. Here Jebediah arrives. You don't really need to see me just fly across 60 meters of space. He grabs a boarding ladder, boards the spacecraft, and there you go. Jebediah and Bob Kerman aboard the Rescue 2. So here we have Rescue 2 performing an eclipse of the sun. Before we move on to our next spacewalk, which is where Bill Kerman leaves Rescue 1 on a roughly 160 meter trip over to Rescue 2. This time around, I'll go ahead and I'll show you the entire spacewalk. It's accelerated, of course, about 4 times normal speed. Because it did take a long time. It's rather tedious. You can see where Rescue 2 is bobbing up and down as I try to keep Bob on course, or Bill on course. He closes in behind Rescue 2. You can see the LVT 909 engine, 4 tanks. I think it's 8 landing gear if I'm not mistaken. He goes in straight for the closest capsule, which is probably a mistake looking back on it. First he has to line up with it. He goes in and he has an issue grabbing hold of the ladder. When he does grab hold of the ladder, it somehow ejects him from the spacecraft. It takes a while for me to realize what I did wrong here. And you're going to line up again. He closes in again. Like I said, this is a very long, tedious spacewalk. This is my first second involved spacewalk. Here we go. He grabs the ladder, but he loses his grip. Then he gets his fat head stuck in between fuel tanks, which is a common problem with Kerbals. You have to let go of the jetpack before you can really grab hold of the ladder. But it's really not helping in this instance, especially when you're getting your fat head stuck in between fuel tanks. Notice that Rescue 1 is already drifted about 700 meters away. It's drifting away pretty quickly. Bill comes back in. And it's still at this point, I still haven't figured out, and I think I know why there was such a problem grabbing hold of that capsule. Jebediah also made straight in and went into the closest capsule, which was probably the same exact capsule, which I didn't realize at the time, but I think looking back on it, I think that's what the issue was. Because you'll notice, Bill grabs hold, he immediately gets ejected, which is probably Kerbal Space Program's goofy way of telling me that I can't put two people in one capsule without actually telling me that I can't put two people in one capsule, which would make sense. And the reason I say that is, if you notice how quickly we grab hold of another capsule and bam, we're in. So, yeah, that's what makes me think that other issue was trying to put two Kerbals in one capsule. Anyhow, moving along. With all three members of the A-Team aboard Rescue 2, it's time to set a trajectory, fire up the engines, and head for home. And as we pull away from the dark side of the moon, Rescue 1 comes in view. We'll take one more look at our trajectory. And Jebediah looks at the stricken at Rescue 1, what the little spacecraft that couldn't, as it passes off our starboard side. We'll come within about 2 kilometers of it. And Jeb thinks to himself, "So long, Rescue 1. You suck a fat cock." "Why, Jeb?" Mission Control says. "Such foul language from you." "Well, it's a shitty spaceship," Jeb says. "Ran out of fuel. Barely got us back in orbit. God damn it. It just pisses me off." "But Jeb, you're with the A-Team. You're flying safely away from the moon." "Well, yeah, I guess. Regardless, Rescue 1, you still suck a fat cock." "Fine, Jeb, whatever." So, here we find ourselves back at Kerbin, and Rescue 2 has in itself developed a bit of a problem. Its problem is that it's low on fuel. What we're doing is we've decided to begin aerobraking in order to bring the orbit down to something reasonable. We have an orbit of about 50,000 meters on the dark side of the planet, but we want to land on the light side of the planet because, well, it's been a long flight. It's been a tough flight, and we want to try to bring it down as close to the Space Center as possible. We're over 1 million kilometers away on the light side, so we're going to use aerobraking to bring ourselves in. This gives you an idea of how elliptical our orbit is. But it took hours to achieve this stable orbit. But here we are, with an orbit of apoapsis of 73,000 meters and a periapsis of 72,000 meters. And it took a very long time to achieve it, but here we are. In our next episode, we're going to go ahead and conduct the landing on the light side of the planet, and we're going to shoot for the same continent that the Space Center is on. Hopefully, the Space Center itself. If you've enjoyed this mission, if you enjoy this video, please light up that like button and subscribe.